What is up guys, Deadset here. In this video we'll go over the Trag'Oul Blood Mage's Necromancer, a very powerful speed farming spec that's also surprisingly viable in Greater Rift progression. Let's go. When doing farming content, the Blood Mage Necromancer begins runs by scouting out the area with a few quick blood rushes, ideally finding a large pack of enemies to fight. Proceed to activate bone armor with a good number of surrounding foes to get as many stacks as you can. Follow it up by seeking your melee minions with command skeletons to trigger the Deadset arms bonus, and starting the main course, summoning skeletal mages to begin the devastation. Strive to stay at or near the cap of 10 skeletal mages summons at all times. In this generatorless setup, you'll regain essence by spamming Devour at all times and activating Land of the Dead as often as the resets of Ingium will allow. The primary damage dealer of the build are the Skeletal Mages, a hard-hitting Necromancer spender sitting at a costly 40 essence base. In order to trigger the Trag'Oul set bonuses, you'll have to pick the blood-spending life support rune by necessity. In turn, this restriction will reward you with 2 extra seconds duration, a handy, forgiving bonus for both the frantic pace of farming and the demanding Greater Rift progression. To supplement the damage of skeletal mages, you have a secondary summon at your side, Command Skeletons. However, they will not be focused on as a source of damage, as their role will be restricted to a proc of the Deadset set. In order to fulfill the set condition, you should not forget to set them on a target every fresh fight. You'll add some crowd control to the skill via the Freezing Grasp rune, which also provides you with regular procs of Crispin's Sentence. Do not forget to apply the freeze multiple times on prolonged fights. The next 2 skills in your arsenal will offer utility and mobility. In a farming setup without a generator, you'll rely on the fast kill speed of regular rifts plus your corpse consumption mechanic Devour to restore your essence. You'll also add a considerable health sustain aspect to the skill with the rune Cannibalize. Note the lack of casting animation to Devour and spam it freely. In a Trag'Oul rifting setup, you'll also do well to add Blood Rush. The 2-piece set bonus nets you all the runes, most notably the cost removal of Hemostasis and the double charges of Metabolism for maximum farming convenience. In case you ever run out of resources, which is unlikely but possible in an unlucky combination of Land of the Dead downtime and lack of nearby corpses, remember that the Molting Rune of Blood Rush will spawn a free corpse to devour and kickstart your damage with. The final 2 active skills will be devoted to utility and crowd control. On a convenient 10-second cooldown, Bone Armor will provide a decent 30% damage reduction at the maximum 10 stacks, as well as a vital 2-second stun from the Dislocation rune. During speed farming, the powers of Ingium, cutting 10 seconds flat off of cooldowns while active, will practically ensure an on-demand stun for every fight, and a guaranteed proc of Crispin's Sentence. Finally, Land of the Dead Frozen Lands will consistently freeze entire screens worth of enemies while it's up, indirectly ensuring your survival and providing an all-around Crispin's Sentence proc. Its massive cooldown will be offset by regular elite kills and Ingium's power, so activate it as many times as you can during a run. This concludes the overview of the active skills. Now let us look through the passives. Since this is a skeletal mage-centric build, everything that augments or extends their power is priority. Thus, Extended Servitude takes a firm slot in your passive selection for the mage duration increase. Blood for Blood is a great addition to a Trag'Oul setup, even more so during farming. Due to the Health Glow pickup radius synergy with Avarice Band, you'll consistently have this passive stocked up with a few charges, enabling carefree spam of skeletal mages as a result. Bloody's power is the Necromancer's take on passives such as Evocation and Beacon of Etar, along with the significant drawback of needing to lose your health reserve equivalent to trigger it. Since it counts off pre-mitigation values, and with the natural flow of Trag'Oul set gameplay, which is spending health alongside essence, you have a guaranteed trigger of its effect every time you put Land of the Dead on cooldown. You have some freedom of choice in your last passive slot. The general recommendation is Dark Reaping, a speed farm oriented passive that replenishes both health and essence as you dominate your enemies in easier content. You naturally fulfill its requirement by wielding Deadset's Skull Scythe. Alternatively, you can fall back to the safety of Final Service to ensure a random drop of the gold wrap bonuses won't result in your untimely death. Ideally, you won't have to choose between those passives with a nicely rolled Hellfire Amulet. Now that we're done with the skill overview, let's go over the gear. Your base armor equipment will consist of the complete Trag'Oul's avatar set, taking all 6 pieces and leaving the jewelry for important damage and utility combinations. As a summon-centric spec, this build makes good use of attack speed and skill damage affixes on gear, taking skeletal mage percentage on both the Trag'Oul helm and Trag'Oul boots, and an attack speed double crit split on the Trag'Oul gloves. Slots such as the shoulders, the chest, and the pants are best left to damage mitigation. A natural part of pet-based Necromancer builds, the Deadset Arms set, Deadset Skull Scythe, and Deadset Skull Shield will produce a vital damage multiplication effect when you use the active component of Command Skeletons. It also has the added benefit of automating the skeleton's active attention during a given engagement, removing a bit of the micromanagement aspect from farming runs. 2 rings will be a fixture of the build regardless of the content, Circle of Nihilus Evil and Crispin's Sentence. The former extends the duration of skeletal mages up to 4 seconds, while the latter multiplies your damage by up to 300% while you have a hard crowd control effect applied to the enemy. Both rings have a varying range of the unique roll that severely impacts the performance of the build, so you have to wear your better drop and cube the other for maximum benefit. In the context of farming, Circle of Nihilus Evil is less important to maximize early on, making it a better choice to wear during the initial stages of making this build. The remainder of your jewelry will consist of farming appropriate choices. Avarice Band is an Act 3 bounty cash ring that extends your pickup radius up to a massive 30-yard maximum. This is an incredible boon during speedruns, not only for the looting convenience, but also for the benefits of Blood for Blood. Finish off the jewelry with a craft of Hellfire Amulet, adding a helpful 5th passive to your lineup, such as Final Service Cheat Death or the Dark Reaping Sustain. To accentuate the benefits of Avarice Band, add a gold wrap as your belt during regular rift farming. Together with Boon of the Hoarder in your ring socket, they will complete the gold triumvirate that renders you immortal as you complete your runs. Considering your cubed Ingium, your most synergistic choice for the wrist slot are the Nemesis Bracers. Spawning you an elite at every shrine or pylon pickup, they will shorten both your runs and your cooldowns. For legendary gems, Bane of the Trapped is a potent source of additional damage, as it is its own multiplier in your total damage calculation. You'll be proccing this gem consistently with a combination of Dislocation, Freezing Grasp, and Frozen Lands. Enforcer is a pet-oriented gem that both increases your summon's damage multiplicatively and lessens the damage they take. This secondary bonus grows in value during Greater Rift progression, where summons start taking considerable amounts of damage and die on a regular basis. Boon of the Hoarder is a purely farming-oriented gem choice, fueling your runs with extra gold and rewarding you with bonus movement speed as you pick it up. The gem offers amazing synergy with Avarice Band and Gold Wrap, making it a part of a vast majority of the regular Rift builds. In Kanais Cube, the recommended power for the weapon slot is Ingium. Lowering remaining cooldowns with generous flat 10-second cuts, this item will make Land of the Dead a readily available asset. A long-standing pet staple, Tasker and Theo are cubed in the armor slot for their 50% multiplicative attack speed bonus to your summons. As previously mentioned, your jewelry cube slot is interchangeable between Crispin's Sentence and Circle of Nihilus Evil. Simply wear your better roll and cube the other. In your Paragon points, max out movement speed and then intelligence in the core section. Double crit stats and then attack speed in offense. Go for armor, then life percentage and or resistance in defense, and go for area damage and resource cost reduction in utility. Now that we've gone over the speed farming build, let's go over a very viable Greater Rift solo progression variant. When it comes to adapting your skills for progression purposes, it's recommended to take off Blood Rush, in favor of a synergistic essence generator. Siphon Blood will replenish 15 essence and 2% health per second spent channeling. Note the utility of the Bloodsucker rune, whose health globe pool will not only net you the extra health, but also the synergy with Blood for Blood. In the progressively scaling difficulties of Greater Rifts, the usefulness of Ingyom will decrease proportionally with the slowing down of combat. Deprived of this cooldown reduction powerhouse, you should swap the Humongous Land of the Dead cooldown for the trusty Decrepify. Its effect is much more tame, but the purpose of its inclusion is similar: reduce incoming damage and crowd control enemies for Crispin's Sentence procs. The latter will be achieved by picking up the Dizzying Curse rune. In the passives, keep Extended Servitude and Blood for Blood. Their usefulness is retained even in Greater Rift progression. Next, add Life from Death to the setup, spawned by Devour's Corpse consumption and picked up with Bloodsucker's ranged grab. The extra health globes from this passive will feed the Blood for Blood stacks. Complete the setup with Spreading Malediction, adding an offense angle to the otherwise defensive Decrepify usage. There's also adaptation to be done in gear. You'll replace Avarice Band and Hellfire Amulet from the farming setup with the progression staples Compass Rose and Traveler's Pledge, forming the Endless Walk set. This jewelry adds the unique mechanic that slowly increases your damage by up to 100% if you remain stationary, and drains it away and increases your damage reduction while moving. This dynamic fits the Blood Mage's Necromancer playstyle, which alternates short bouts of movement and scouting with periods of stationary Skeletal Mage spam and Siphon Blood channeling. You'll be dropping the farming-oriented Nemesis Bracers for the scaling protection of Ancient Parton defenders. As long as you maintain a mid to close range playstyle, you'll enjoy frequent procs of the Bracer from your Dislocation, Freezing Grasp, and Dizzying Curse use. Last but not least, since Gold Wrap loses its powers from the lack of gold drops in Greater Rifts, it will be replaced by Dainty's Binding. This Necromancer-specific belt compensates its lack of flashy offensive powers with a mighty defensive bulwark, 50% extra damage reduction as long as there is an enemy afflicted by your Decrepify. Note that it's very likely to lose this bonus during or in between fights, as you kill off previously afflicted enemies, and make a point to reapply the curse on a regular basis. When it comes to adapting legendary gems, there are two major approaches to the last of your gem slots. You have a damage reduction option in the defensive bulwark of Esoteric Alteration, preferable if you trust the sustain from health globe consumption. Alternatively, you can slot Molten Wildebeest's Gizzard for its massive life regeneration bonus, useful if you notice yourself overspending on health with the life support spam. For the Kanais cube, the speedrun-oriented powers of Ingyom will be replaced by Scythe of the Cycle in the weapon slot during Greater Rift progression. The legendary bonus of this weapon will augment the damage of your Skeletal Mage spam at the cost of consuming your Bone Armor duration. Keep a close eye on the timer and make a point to refresh long before the skill wears off. And this is it for the Blood Mage Necromancer for farming and Greater Rift progression. This video was shot live at twitch.tv/thedeadset, where I showcase builds and theory crafting live. I'd like to take a moment to thank Icy Veins, the gracious host of my guides, as well as the people that subscribe to my Twitch channel for the month for supporting the content I create. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you guys next time.